I'd be more of an accidental trainer, but we're kind of beginning to get the hang of it. Ours would be very much just taking it slow. Yeah, so we like to try and sell 1 or 2 a year. If things go well, 2 would be great. And we don't sell any of our fillies or mares. So all our mares we train, keep. We have a couple of syndicates that might take them, and we'll do them here. Our address is Enniskerry, but technically we're Enniskerry Kilmechanic, not too far from Pariscourt Estate. And we're literally only got 10 minutes off the N11.
My background in horses probably started, it started when we had a pony as a kid, and then when I was at vet college I bought a half-bred mare, broke her and got her broken, and basically just rode her out. Then when I qualified I always had a thoroughbred to ride out, so really I rode out 7 mornings a week, and that would be kind of at 5:30 in the morning, winter, summer, or whatever else. And so it was just part of what we enjoyed. So always had a thoroughbred here. Never that lucky. Got to ride in a bumper in Leopardstown. That same horse was fourth or third in, I think it was fourth or third in a bumper in the Galway Festival. As I said, it was just the addiction to the thoroughbred and the fitness, the training and the fun.
So I'm originally from Killiney, and we always had ponies when we were growing up. Nothing particularly spectacular now, but just little ponies. And we used to ride all over Killiney Hill and Killiney Beach, myself and my sisters. And then as we got older, my sisters sort of took a back seat, and I was always pony obsessed, horse obsessed. And my mum was originally from Donegal. My mum's brother Martin always had show jumpers and a good few stallions at the time. So when we spent most of our summers up in Donegal, so I was always trekking around with horses up there. And actually his son now, Ronan McLaughlin, would be well known in the jumping world. And so that's really, so we've always had horses in the family. We didn't have the money to have these valuable, expensive show jumpers. So, you know, I would have bought cheap, and I always was like looking to buy a nice, young, cheap horse, bring it on myself and sell it. And I got a kick out of doing that and making a bit of money out of, you know, producing them well and selling them well. And when I finished college, I decided I would go. For some reason, I really wanted to get into the racehorses. So I went and I rode yearlings for a while in Kildangan, and that was interesting because I, you know, literally just said, "Oh yeah, here I'll ride yearlings." And then I went to Italy for a while, and I worked with racehorses in Italy, riding yearlings and sales prep. And that was nice, and it was lovely, you know. And then when I came back to Ireland, I kind of got back into the half-breds again.
The mares go back to two mares. That's the half-sisters of Night Nurse and the daughter of Anna Logsdorher. She came from Tony Durkin, Lord of Mercy. The half-sister of Night Nurse came from Ken Parkhill. And basically that's where we have the mares, okay, and we're just breeding away. And again, like anybody else, we do need to get black type, and so that's one of them. Well, we just like to look after horse anyway, but one of the main reasons for not rushing them is in the hope that these guys will not suffer the consequences of putting too much pressure on them as a 4-year-old.
I've had my licence for 3 years, and between Larry and myself, we kind of fought who took the name out, and I lost that one. So anyway, so I took my licence out anyway, and the first runner I had was in Dromahane, a Westerner, and a 5-year-old Westerner, and Ben Harvey rode him, and we won. Ben gave him a great win, and he won by a good few lengths. So that was sort of unusual, and it sort of drummed us up a bit. And then Ben rode for us for a good while, and then he went professional. So, and Ben and Alex used to come up here and ride out for us, and then Johnny Barry now riding for us, and Johnny and Brian, his brother Brian, come up and they school. So they come up on Fridays. They'll come up here, or else I might go down to the Curragh and meet them, depending what suits them.
Kim Parkhill gave us a mare who relates with, she was a half-sister Night Nurse, and lucky enough she had one foal for us, and that foal was by Rosalier, And that mare then is the mother of, she's the mother of 3 or 4 mares that we have, okay? Now, some of those are by Great Pam, and 2 of them are by Pierre. No, 1 is by Pierre, my apologies, yeah. And 2 by Great Pam. And so we were lucky in that the Great Pam mare bred, we had 1 bumper horse. He looked to be, not a bumper, sorry, a point horse. He looked to be a serious horse. Anyway, in his first run, he was leading going to the last fence down in Cork, and he broke his leg 1 stride away from the fence. So his half brother, or his full brother, we got in and broke, and then Colin Bowe took him down, and he won a pint with him, and he made, I think, about 115,000. Horse called Pogue. Yeah, Pogue. And then we had another one out of that family that Colin Bowe won a pint with to Rainbow Chaser. So there were those few. And then the other part of the section of the thing is a mare, small mare that I got from Tony Durkin, Lord of Mercy him, but she was a tap on wood mare. She was out of Annadlog's daughter. And so we had she had 1 foal by Yashkan, and the Yashkan mare basically is the mother of about 5 or 6 mares that we have. 1 at Present and 1 at Flemingsford, 2 stowaways. I think we have a Getaway. So anyway, so it's all that line. Now, obviously, we're you know, what we do, we're not professionals like the top, but we just enjoy what we do. We certainly don't we like our horses just to have an easy time. We prefer to spend 4 years getting them to win 1 race rather than lose them, or the risk of losing them. But that's economically probably not the ideal way, but you know, it's the way we want it. And consequently, coming back to Riceal and the point winner this year, you know, he wasn't broken till he was 4, and so he didn't do a whole lot. We kind of hoped to run him this spring, and he was entered up for about 4 or 5 weeks. But the ground, he was a big horse, 16.3, and the ground was just too firm, and it wouldn't be fair. The risk factor was great. The temptation to run him was there, but the risk factor. So we postponed it and left it till the autumn time.
I would have liked to have kept him for another 2 weeks to run him, because he's carrying still an awful lot of condition, because he's quite a hard horse to strip down. And I took him down to Johnny took him to the Curragh twice, and then Johnny came here and schooled him here. And the last time in the Curragh, it was just Johnny was riding him and Brian was riding one of the other horses. And he just said, look, this guy go before Christmas, because who knows what way the weather is going to go.
And so that's the approach we take, just quite simple. Enjoy them, protect them, and hope that down the road that we can breed some serious horses that will reflect the whole pedigree, because we have so much of the pedigree. If we get 1 good horse, it's the pedigree will help. So kind of we're much better off getting half the price for a 5-year-old than the full price for a 4-year-old that might never make it. So that's the reason why we just don't go down the road of kind of bringing them forward for 4-year-olds.
You'd love to see a good trainer get their hands on him, because he will be a really super horse for the future. And the fact that he's been taken on so slowly, like everything has been done. We've never pushed him, we've never forced him. He's been schooled in the flat, schooled down the woods. So he really is, he'd just be a really good buy, I think, personally. But I'd love to keep him now. We have a little syndicate that have him, and half the syndicate want to sell him, half the syndicate want to keep him. So if they don't get kind of the money that they're thinking of, then he's not going anywhere. We'll keep him. But then obviously I have to go and get my license for the track then, because you'd have good fun with him. We mix all our own feed. So our oats is bruised, roasted oats, and we get that from Wins. And we buy that in the big 2-ton bags. And then we put Molly Shine molasses, seaweed, and a premix in with that, just for all their vitamins. And then we put soybean meal, so the full soya nut, and that just ups the protein. And then we have a special bucket on the tractor with sort of a rotating arm. And so then our son Anthony does that as well. He mixes all the feed. And we mix every week, we mix fresh feed. That's what we feed our racehorses, that's it. So it's just this mix that we make up ourselves. And then everything gets seaweed because the iodine is so, it's good for the breeding stock and for the racing stock. You saw our yearlings out in the field, they're coming in now. Usually they would have been in 2 or 3 weeks ago, but we had so much grass and they were actually thriving this year. We left them out, but they will be probably coming in tomorrow. And then we have the mares and foals, and then we have another pen with recipients, because we need recipients quite early in the season, so they would be well ready for if clients want to use them for embryos. And so there's a bit of a mix. There's a mix down there of mostly thoroughbreds. To be fair on Larry, he kind of thought ahead. So all our sheds they're built better than your standard shed. So they're all insulated walls and floors. And we were just thinking, like, who knows what's down the line for the kids in later years. So they could all be converted into warehouses, offices, rental units, and that was sort of down the line. We just were sort of trying to think ahead.
Basically, the wintering is always the biggest problem with horses. So we went to put up some form of facility for the winter. So I really wanted I was looking at a polythene structure because we have it down beside the wood, and the wood is a natural wood that's 100 years old, and we didn't want any steel structure that would take away from the wood. So we were hoping whatever we built there would fit in and blend in with the wood. And so I contacted a guy called Colin Moran, who's from Trim, and he does greenhouses and whatever else. And basically I had an idea of an oval shed, but he came up with his own idea, which was that design. And basically the first shed we put in was 120 foot long by 40 foot wide. And if you notice the shed, again, my idea was to have clear roof on the whole, or dark roof on the whole lot. His idea was to put clear roof on half it, okay? Now, he wanted it because it would look good, but the end result was, with the shed, with the clear roof in part of it, when the animals are in it, they're incredibly settled. So if you were to look and observe animals in there, and remember they're in a herd environment, okay? So there's 15, 20 of them in batches. When they're in that, it's like as if they're as settled as they are in a 20-acre field. And I've never seen animals in any shed settled like the way they are in that. So I have to put it down to the open space and this clear roof, which really seems to be, his idea of doing it was obviously just to make it look better. But I have to thank him for the shed, and quite simple, the sheds are not that cheap, but environmentally they just look the part. And the horses are ferociously settled. The other point is, because there's no walls and everything is mesh and whatever else, there's an air blown through them all the time. So the bedding, you get away with far less bedding. The bedding keeps drying out, so you don't really have the same amount of bedding as you would have in a big galvanized shed. So the shed now is 220 foot long, I think. We put up one section, then we put up a second section. And we just clean it out once a year, and they're bedded down whenever they need bedded down. They get good haylage, and that's it for the winter. Now the haylage is good. When I say haylage, it's hay that's about 12 hours away from being made, and we just wrap it. And the advantage of that is two things. Obviously the quality is good, but the other thing is when you have the haylage nice and dry, again you will save on straw. If you have wet, lush haylage for horses, their droppings are soft, and they're not going to be as dry from the point of view of the bed. They're like cows. So the shed, 40 foot wide, it's 220 foot long, and it's savagely comfortable for the horses.
So when I met Larry, we did an awful lot of cattle embryos. So I was technically his technician. I was trained up to do all the microscope work, and cattle embryos, you know, because they can super ovulate them, so you're looking for an awful lot of embryos. So I actually got very handy at doing that, and I enjoyed it. And then when we were doing the mares, it worked very well because Larry was out doing the handling and doing the mares, and I would go in and do the microscope work. And now that we're doing the ovum pickup, I do most of the microscope work, which I like. I'm good at it and I enjoy it, and it's quite nice because you're in a very warm, quiet environment, and nobody comes in and annoys you. So it's quite nice.
We started to practice 42 years ago. It wasn't purchased. It was just we opened up practice. Or I opened up the practice, starting mostly cattle and some horses. I always had an interest in reproduction, and probably before I qualified, I had access to getting the experience in the vet college, which probably they don't allow now, but by the time I qualified, I was able to handle mares. Now remember, at that stage there were no scanners. So when we started to practice, mostly cattle, some horses, and it grew. Basically, the horse part grew and grew, and the reproduction grew and grew. So we started within 2 years of starting to practice. We then started to work on our free time down in Belfair with a guy called Joe Shreenan. He was the head of probably one of the top 3 research teams in the world in cattle embryos. So every week, every weekend, or every second weekend, he allowed me to go down and work with them, because obviously I was quite into practice. And so within 2 or 3 years, we were then doing embryo work on cattle. Well, maybe took 4 or 5 years before. Initially, Joe Shreenan was just doing research work, and then it became commercially available. And basically, not too long after that, we started to offer for the horses. Now, at that stage, most people there weren't that many anyway who wanted to do horse embryos, but most people that did it really didn't want it to be known. So they just did it and worked away themselves, because it was their business and nobody else's. So the practice moved on with reproduction in cattle, reproduction in horses, general calls, and then the reproduction in the horses started to grow with embryos, AIing, to where we've ended up now, where we do a lot of embryo work. We're lucky in that we developed a system for freezing horse embryos that are kind of 7.5 days old, and we're probably the only lab in the world that can freeze these embryos. We stumbled upon it and we copped onto it and we perfected it. Now, for the last 3 years, we're now, apart from the embryo work, we're doing this so-called ICSI, or it's like IVF in humans, and now humans are doing ICSI. Basically, what we do is, in the winter months when mares are not cycling, the ovaries tend to get batches of small follicles. So what we do is we take out the eggs out of those follicles, send them to Italy, and they're inseminated. The sperm is injected directly into the lab. That's where the ICSI comes from, intercytoplasmic injection, okay? It's not IVF as in humans. It doesn't work in horses, the IVF, so it's ICSI. And so we're doing that as well as the rest of the reproduction. And equally, the small animal practice has grown. So the result now is we've 4 vets here doing the work. The ICSI part, at the moment, we're sending the eggs to Italy. Hopefully this winter, if we can get the time to sort it out, we're going to do our own ICSI. We've a lot of equipment. We purchased that about 25 years ago for doing sexing on cattle embryos. The microscopes and manipulators, which is the expensive part. So we purchased that about 25 years ago to do sexing on cattle embryos. We offered that service for 3 or 4 years, but it was too expensive. And plus sex semen came into play, so there was no need for it. But lucky enough, we didn't get rid of the equipment. It'll help us now when we decide to do the ICSI, because to set up an ICSI lab is about 250,000. But we have probably about 150,000 of that already spent. And so our intent is to do the ICSI lab. Now, apart from all that, now we also have the few thoroughbreds. So that's the giggle room, okay? All of this ICSI embryo transfer work is not for thoroughbreds, but we just, insofar as the reproduction thoroughbreds, it's normal scanning. We equally do a fair bit of a fair bit of work on infertile mares, thoroughbred mares that are infertile, either with blocked fallopian tubes or with a low-grade endometritis that can't be cleared up. So we tend to do that in the winter months, where they'll bring the mares to us and we'll treat them for the blocked fallopian tubes or the metritis. And so, as I said, you're limited in what you can do with thoroughbreds from the point of view of assisted reproduction, like as in embryos or ICSI. That's not part of where they are. And so, quite simple. So you have to practice is small animals, thoroughbreds, normal thoroughbreds, lame, whatever else, and reproduction. Half-breds, colic, lameness, and reproduction. The half-bred reproduction is a big factor of it because of the embryo work.
Before we were selling as 3-year-olds and we lost track of our horses. We thought we started breaking, keeping them and running them, but we would, we're quite backwards compared to a lot of trainers because we do everything quite slow. We spend a lot of time tricking around as young horses. Very few of our 4-year-olds are ever ready to run. And I know when it comes to financially for the business, it's not very viable, but that's the way we like to, because over the years we've produced our dam lines, and it's just we're breeding for and training for the future. We love to see horses do well, go to small, good yards where you can see them going on. If it's a really big horse, we'll leave it maybe till a 4-year-old. But this year now, I've been ahead of the game. So we've everything broken this year as 3-year-olds. So some of them were broken back, thrown out. The stronger ones, we kept them going, and we just sort of bring them. They do a little bit on the gallops just to keep them from getting too fresh, and then they'd head off. We'd take them down the woods. We have a little cross-country track, which is quite nice. Nothing too big. Little banks. We have the river. They might just go down, potter around, and then they'll go back up and do a little bit in the gallops. They'll go into our little arena, and they'll do a little bit of flat work, so they just know to strike off on the right leg, a little bit of pole work, and then back on the gallops for their little canter. So at the moment, I have 5 3-year-olds there at the moment, 5 very nice 3-year-olds, and they're all doing that now. They're all sort of tricking around, and they're getting strong in themselves. It keeps them very keen as well. And we do a bit of slow canter work on the gallops, but nothing, just balancing them really. It's all about balancing.
We have the gallop in about 4 years. So basically we put a lot of effort into getting the gallops in. We had a friend of ours, PJ Foley. He was brought up his digger and his dump trucks, and another friend of ours, Sam Keeley, on his dump truck. And they dug the gallops out. They went down 2 foot with the gallops, and another 2 foot drainage in the middle. So the whole gallops then was filled in with 3-inch clean concrete, which it's like 3-inch stone. And we then got access to planings, and we got a planer, what they call a planer, the machine for laying tarmac macadam on the road. We got in one of those, and we laid the whole surface with that. Now it was expensive, but it gave a much more even surface than you would with a digger. So the surface was like what you would get on the road, and as I said, so we had our stone, our planings on top, and we had about 6 inches of that, and then we have 12 inches of sand. It's all Wexford sand. Mr. Kelly and Mr. Darcy supplied the sand. Two different men. Kelly supplied most of it. I presume you know him, do you? And then Mr. Darcy supplied some of it as well. So basically that's the gallop, and it's fenced with that white electric fencing. And so the gallops basically, it's a circle and up. It rises about 200 feet. I know I could check it out, but it rises about 200 feet. And quite simple, if you go around the circle right up to the top, you're going 1,250 metres. The circle is 320, I think, metres. And the straight, well, when they say the straight, it's not quite straight, it's like an egg-shaped. It's about 20 metres. But we don't do any quick work on it. We just, the horses, when they're when they're in work about 2 months, now no 2 months, not 2 weeks, then we upped them to doing about 7 kilometres hacking a day. But they just hack at a canter, never get a gallop.
Well, I've always been into hunting. I just love hunting, and I used to do an awful lot of travelling. So I have a couple of friends that would be big into hunting as well. So we just follow the big hunts. I'd drive to Kerry for a hunt if it was a good one, or wherever we could go. And then I was very involved in the braes, because the braes hunt true here and they use here quite a bit. And then I became field master. I was field master for a few years, and then I was master, which I loved, because I had 2 very good horses at the time as well. I also thought if I got the green jacket, I could hunt anywhere I wanted for free. But when you're master, you don't really travel. You just have to stay with your own hunts. So that changed a bit. And but then when we built the shed and we got into the race horses, the hunting took a bit of a back seat because I was busy with that. And then more importantly, I was very busy with the kids. We were at that stage where everybody was, they had their hobbies, and it was important to give them my time.
We don't put our mares in foal till June, July and August, and sometimes September. Mostly because unfortunately I'm too busy in the springtime and it doesn't suit. So our foals are late foals. And the reason we've a lot of fillies is we've had more than our fair share of fillies, okay? And so, quite simple, we got our quote, but then we're quite happy to have the fillies now, in that allows us just to have the fun. But so the foals, they're too late to sell as foals. They're still not mature enough to sell as 3-year-olds. Now, we did sell one walk in the park last year as a 3-year-old, and he made a good few bob because he was more mature. But mostly, you take this particular horse, the Riceal train this year, as a 3-year-old, he was only grown. As a 4-year-old, he was only grown. And so, to sell him, you'd be selling a shell. And if you were to work him as a 4-year-old, you would have been. We didn't work him till the latter part of 4. If you were working him at the end of a 3 and early 4, you wouldn't have had a horse. Whereas now you have a serious, big, strong horse. But going back to the breeding, so they're late foals, then they're late 3-year-olds. But if you want to run them as 5, at the end of 4.5 years old, 5 on, there's no difference between the ones that are bred in March or the guys that are, or the foals that are foaled in March as compared with those that are foaled in July. We're
married 27 years and Beth is 25 and a half now, and so Beth's a qualified vet. She's in Sri Lanka at the moment. She's working here for the past 2 years, and she went over to work in animal sanctuaries and exotics, and she will be back for the breeding season. And Beth is very much involved in the ovum pickup, and Larry's training her up now, which is great. And she's very good at scanning as well, so she's an invaluable asset. And Beth was always a very keen rider when she was younger. Well, I mean, I dragged her to every hunt as well, but she was really good working hunter rider. She was very much involved in dressage as well. All of ours did pony club. I loved pony club, so they would have all competed to quite a high standard in pony club. And then Beth got involved in the workers, and she did all Dublin. She was in Dublin, God, from 5 or 6 times. And then she did a bit of eventing. Molly's our youngest. She's just gone 16. She's transition year at the moment, so she's working. To be fair, Molly's been great help on the farm. During the summer now, she was riding the racehorses, and now she's mad into show jumping. So it's just finding the right horse without having to spend mental money. Last year she was riding Pembroke King of Kings for Finbar Mulligan, and she was very lucky she jumped up to 135 in the young riders last year, and so she's 2 young horses now, and she's a nice horse belonging to Edward Doyle, so hopefully she'll aim for the qualifiers for next year. And Molly's also very big into her hunting. Our eldest boy is Anthony. He was doing engineering, and now Anthony's kind of taken over the farm. He does everything on the farm. He does all the tractor work, all the crops, the hay. Basically, he does everything, which is fantastic. Rolls the fields, mixes all the feed, and it's been fantastic for Larry because, Larry just can't. We're just too busy. But I'm not sure if he's going to go into the horse business. Probably not. I can see him going back again to college next year. And then we've Ronan, who is just gone 20. Ronan is a professional downhill mountain biker, which is completely different to the horses. And actually, neither of the boys really ride now. I tried everything to get them into the horses, but they were always mountain bikers. And they both be very well known in the mountain biking world. And Ronan in particular, because he's ridden for Ireland for a good few years, but he does all the world circuits. And he's actually ranked 12th in the world now at the moment, which is fantastic.
We sell a few. But the idea is to try and train a few. Now, we're not that lucky, but we enjoy it, and it's quite simple. Nobody dies if the horses don't win, but to get one to win is it's first rewarding, and it's hard to kind of taste that anywhere else, you know.